Hello everybody, Infernape Shinjo here. Welcome to today's video, and I hope you're ready because we are tackling the Unova anime. So before I begin, let me just say that I know that a lot of people bash the Unova anime, but I'm not gonna let what they think impact my decision, because at the same time, overall as a series, I really enjoyed the Unova anime. It was going on around the time that I graduated from high school and started getting a job and all that stuff. So it was a fun thing to see. So getting into the pros, the first thing is that it is clearly the most experimentative of the series. Because at the same time, while it does follow the story's plot of the game, it doesn't really follow it to a T. Because it gives Ash like 3 rivals. He gets Stefan, he gets Bianca, he gets Cameron, maybe Luke, maybe Virgil, but even Iris gets Georgia and Silent gets Burgundy. Oh yeah, and I guess the obvious one, Ash gets Trip as a rival. Sorry, I forgot about him for a minute. But that's cool to see because you could have one episode where Ash's company is palling around with Stefan, then another episode where it's them and Luke. It has different episode potentials with different characters that they can just bounce off of. And especially the Don George tournament being in the middle of the show was a great idea because there's already a large cast of characters anyway, so it's cool to see what would happen if these two faced off. Especially when it turned out that one of Ash's rivals actually wins one of the tournaments. And at the same time, after 4 different generations of being around Brock, I feel like Silent brings a similar wackiness with him just being a connoisseur of everything, but at the same time I will admit that it's hard to follow a character like Brock. But on to the cons. Iris is just a discounted Misty. I would just throw it off as there, but she had chances with development, because they were in the Dragon Village where she grew up, and even the one-off Dano episode, where Iris takes care of a Dano, and she thinks, maybe I should catch this. Oh no, here's its trainer. End of the episode. She had chances of actual development, but she just didn't. Even considering that half of her team wasn't even a dragon. And I think Georgia mentions that in a couple of episodes. And the obvious con, yes, Ash is a step down from his Sinnoh version, but the big examples that people always bring up are his battle against Elisa and the league battle against Cameron. But those are really the only 2 examples that I can think of. I'm sure that there were examples that Ash actually was competent, but people always bring up the Elisa and Cameron examples. Although at the same time, I get that they did stuff like that for comedic effect, but it just didn't really hit home with a lot of people, obviously. The other thing which is very unfortunate, that Ash caught more than 6 Mons in this series. I'm not going to go through all the Mons that he caught because I know I'm going to forget one anyway, but he caught more than 6 Mons for his team, just like Kanto. But that ends up being that a lot of his Mons don't really get development. Outside of Pikachu, I would say that the captures that he gets in this series that really did get development were Snivy, Pignite, Oshawott, and Crocodile. And the only reason that they really do is because they have backstories. Now, just like in the Sinnoh video where I discussed there were some things that they should have expanded on, there are a lot that I feel like they should have expanded on. Like, for example, Scraggy and Boldore. I don't really want to single those 2 out, but the fact that Ash had his Scraggy face Iris's Axu multiple times, and Scraggy actually gets a couple of wins, but he really doesn't go anywhere with it. Like, I don't want to say evolve him into a Scrafty or anything, but just like show that he's actually making progress. And the reason that I bring up Boldore, and I hope I'm not the only one thinking this, back in the day when I was watching the episodes new, Trip had a Timber. he evolved it into a girder, which we saw when Silent battled him. And I was just there thinking, girder evolves by trading. Boldor evolves by trading. Now, I don't think they really explained trait evolution that much outside of the Shelmet Carablast episode, but I always thought it would be cool if Ash and Trip would have traded their mons. Trip gets a Gigalith, Ash gets a Conkeldurr, because they actually evolve by trait evolution. And it would give us some more development for Trip. But no, we just see Trip with a Conkeldurr. Don't know if he actually traded with anybody. Who knows? But I feel like they could have developed on that, the whole dynamic between Trip and Alder, and granted it's not really as big of a thing, I would have liked to get the background on Salen's irrational fear of Purloin. Granted, it isn't really that big of a deal because the fear of Purloin is just there for a gag. I still would have liked to see a little bit of development on that. And finally, the last con, the Decalore Islands. Like, you can't show me the Decalore Islands and tell me that it was there for anything other than filler. The only thing that really happens in that part of the anime is that they have an open for the Kalos region. They introduce the journalist, which makes Ash go to Kalos. That's really the only reason the Decalore Islands exist, because none of Ash's mons evolve. None of them really get any real development of any kind. And that's just unfortunate, because I feel like there's a lot of hidden potential here. But overall, I'll say that the Unova anime experimented a lot with what the formula established. They gave every character a rival, they had Ash catch more than 6 Pokemon, and I'm sure they did a whole bunch of other stuff. But some stuff just didn't land properly. Like, Ash getting multiple mons didn't work because some of them just got shafted. Like I mentioned in the last video with the filler between the 7th and 8th Gym Badge and Sinnoh, they could have taken the filler from the Decalore Islands and just used that to develop Ash's other Pokemon, Iris as a character, and even some of the other points that I brought up. Like, if they would have introduced characters like Virgil and Cameron earlier, then it would have felt more impact when Ash loses to him in the league. Even though his loss against Cameron is still kind of bullcrap. But even with all this stuff that I did bring up, I will say that Best Wishes is still one of my guilty pleasures that I love to watch, because there are so many jokes in this show and so many different memes that I still use to this day, especially Silent's voice in the dub is just golden. But while I will admit that there is a lot of missed potential with this show, I wouldn't say it was super terrible, because there are still some good points, even though a lot of it is just comedy. But that is going to be my discussion on the Unova anime, and I hope you enjoyed. If you feel like you need to bring up anything else, then leave that down in the comment section. Obviously, there's the stuff like Team Rocket actually turning evil for a bit, but it just kind of didn't work because they went back to being goofy later. And the whole thing with the Giovanni, that was only just a mini arc, but still, I felt like the stuff that I brought up was really the big stuff that I wanted to discuss. But get ready, because next I'm tackling the Kalos anime. And if you thought that my takes were hot on this video, just wait till that one. Momentai.